It is 2 in the morning. For the third night this week, I am walking to the bathroom. Plenty of folks past 60 expect this from their bodies. Doctors hand out the same advice to everybody. Drink 8 glasses a day, without mentioning that when you drink matters as much as how much. Tonight I want to show you the old way of pacing water through the day. Front-loaded early, tapered off by supper, so the bladder gets its rest same as the rest of you does. I am not a doctor, and if you are up many times a night, every night, it can be worth a doctor's attention. Prostate trouble, sugar trouble, or a tired heart, not something timing alone can fix. The common mistakes that quietly cause this, there are some simple, old adjustments you can make. They'll support your kidneys and your bladder, and that means getting a full night's rest. My name is Ezekiel.
And my family has paced our drinking this same plain way since we settled Lancaster County in 1838. One simple pattern, step by step. Here is something worth saying plain. Most folks over 60 accept nighttime bathroom trips the way they accept gray hair or aching knees, as simply part of what happens when the body gets older. But that acceptance is exactly what the medical system wants you to feel. Because acceptance means no questions asked, no changes made, and no reason to examine whether something that feels inevitable might actually be something you created yourself, one evening glass of water at a time. A doctor will tell you to drink enough fluids, and that is true. You do need enough water. What they rarely mention, because it does not fit neatly into a prescription pad or a general guideline, is that when you drink that water is every bit as important as how much of it you drink. The human body was never designed to process large amounts of liquid right before sleep. A body past 60 processes everything slower than a younger one does. Slower to digest, slower to move things through the system, slower to recover from strain, and most importantly, slower to empty the bladder once it is filled. The old folks understood this without ever reading a medical journal, simply by watching their own bodies and learning from what they noticed, passing down what they discovered to the next generation without ever needing a study to prove it. They drank most of their water during the working hours when the body was moving and the kidneys had a full day ahead to process it, and they barely drank at all after the sun went down. That simple shift, that single change in timing, is what gave them the sleep that aging modern folks have mostly given up on. The first key is understanding that the timing of water is not a small detail. It is the entire foundation of whether your night will be restful or interrupted. Most folks focus entirely on the total amount, 8 glasses, 10 glasses, whatever number they heard from somewhere, and they distribute that water evenly throughout the day. A glass at each meal, a glass with their afternoon snack, another glass with supper, and sometimes even water right before bed. That even distribution is the mistake. A glass with supper seems reasonable, harmless even, innocent in a way that makes it easy to overlook. But by the time that glass has made its way through the stomach, into the bloodstream, and into the kidneys for processing, bedtime is already arriving, and the kidneys are now actively trying to clean that water and send it to the bladder while the body is trying to sleep. The bladder fills while you are lying flat, when gravity is not helping move anything along, when the body is in its deepest rest, when the mind is supposed to be recovering from the day. That is not a design flaw in the body. That is not aging catching up with you. That is a design flaw in the timing of the water, pure and simple, and it is entirely fixable once you understand what is actually happening. I remember watching my own father change how he drank water after he turned 65, not because a doctor told him to, but because he simply noticed the pattern himself. He used to drink water steady through the day, same as anybody else, and by his 60s, he was getting up twice most nights. One winter, he deliberately stopped drinking anything after supper, nothing but a small sip if his mouth got truly dry, and within a week, the trips to the bathroom dropped to once a night, and within 2 weeks, most nights, he did not get up at all. He mentioned it to me once, casual, the way he mentioned most things. Said it was simpler than he expected, just a matter of shifting when the water went in, not how much went in total. I did not think much of it at the time. too young to worry about such things, but I have spent the last 30 years watching that same pattern play out in countless folks, and it never fails to work once they actually try it. The second key is front-loading, drinking most of your water early when the body is active and moving and can process it during daylight hours. This means starting the day with a good glass of water first thing, before breakfast even, when the body has just woken and is ready to work. It means drinking water steadily through the morning and midday when chores are being done, when the body is moving, when gravity is helping move water through the system and the kidneys are actively filtering it during waking hours. This is not deprivation. This is simply putting the water in when the body can actually use it, process it, and eliminate it before you ever lie down for sleep. This is the opposite of what most modern life teaches, where water is treated as something to sip constantly throughout the day, rationed out evenly so nobody gets thirsty at any particular moment. The old way was to drink when it mattered, when the body could do something with it, not just when thirst struck. Esther keeps a pitcher by her morning chair, and she drinks a full glass while the house is still quiet, before anything else happens. By noon, she has typically had 4 or 5 glasses, and by afternoon, when the day's work is heaviest, she drinks another glass or 2. By supper time, she has already consumed what most folks would think of as their full daily water intake, and she does it all before the sun is even halfway down, before the body begins its evening wind down toward sleep. A neighbor once asked Esther why she was always carrying that water pitcher around in the morning. Seemed wasteful to drink so much so early. Esther told her plain, it is not wasteful, it is planning. And the planning happens when the body still has time to do something with the water, not when it is trying to sleep. That same neighbor, years later, admitted she had finally tried it after too many interrupted nights to count, and found the first week hard, carrying water with her in the field, breaking her usual habit of waiting until afternoon to really start drinking. By the second week, she said, she noticed the pattern shifting. Fewer bathroom trips at night, better sleep, and she had not reduced her total water intake at all, just moved it to earlier in the day. What seemed wasteful, what seemed unnecessary, turned out to be the entire trick, and she could not believe she had spent years waking up multiple times a night without ever trying something so simple. The third key is setting a firm cutoff point in the evening, a time after which water stops flowing in. For most folks, that cutoff should be around 4 or 5 in the afternoon, which gives a good 4 to 5 hours for the water drunk at that time to work through the system before bedtime arrives. Some folks can manage a small glass with supper, especially if supper is early, eaten right after the cutoff. But anything beyond that is asking for trouble. This is not a suggestion. It is not a guideline. It is not something to negotiate with yourself about when you feel thirsty. It is a firm boundary, the same way a farmer does not ask a tired horse for more work after sunset. After that cutoff point, water is restricted to small sips only, just enough to wet the mouth if it is truly dry, not enough to actually hydrate or add to the kidney's workload during the evening hours. This single boundary, held firm every single night without exception, is often enough to change the whole pattern of nighttime waking, because it gives the body a clear, predictable signal about when processing time ends and resting time begins. The body is remarkably good at learning patterns when the pattern is consistent, and remarkably bad at adapting when the pattern keeps changing. I set my cutoff at 4 o'clock, firm, every single day, and I do not make exceptions. At first, when I was testing this out, I thought I would cheat on weekends, or when we had company in the evening and water seemed more social than restrictive. Every single time I broke that 4 o'clock line, even by an hour, even by a small glass, I paid for it at 2 in the morning. The body does not negotiate about these things. It simply responded to what I asked of it. After a few weeks of holding the line without exception, my body learned it so well that I would actually feel thirsty right around 3:30, as though the kidneys themselves knew the cutoff was approaching and wanted to get their last intake in before the window closed. Now, at nearly 70, I sleep through most nights, and the few times I do get up are from old age and normal aging, not from poor planning about when I drank water. Now, before I go to the next key, I need to say something plainly, because skipping this part is exactly how folks hurt themselves trying to solve something that might actually need a doctor's attention. If you are waking up 10 times a night, or 8 times, or even 5 times consistently every single night, despite trying this water timing, that is not normal aging, and it is not something to dismiss. That can be a sign of prostate trouble in men, which is common but deserves checking. It can be a sign of blood sugar running high, which is worth knowing about. It can be a sign that the heart is not pumping as efficiently as it should, and the body is trying to get rid of fluid by running it through the kidneys. None of these things are emergencies, but all of them are things a doctor actually needs to know about. This water timing trick works beautifully for folks who wake up once or twice a night out of habit, not need. But if the waking is frequent and relentless, the answer is not more water timing. The answer is a doctor's visit to rule out something that actually needs attention. The fourth key is understanding the mistakes that quietly sabotage this whole plan. The first mistake is drinking heavily at supper, especially if supper includes soup or stew or anything with high liquid content. Folks often do not count the water and food toward their total, so they drink a regular glass of water with a bowl of soup and have just doubled their liquid intake at exactly the wrong time. The second mistake is drinking caffeine or alcohol in the afternoon or evening, both of which are diuretics, meaning they actively encourage the kidneys to produce more urine, the opposite of what you want when bedtime is approaching. The third mistake is assuming a small glass of water before bed is harmless, because it is not. That small glass is just enough to keep the cycle going. The fourth mistake is not actually following the timing consistently, trying it for 3 days and then reverting to old habits, expecting the body to change without giving it time to adjust to the new pattern. The fifth mistake is drinking cold water in the evening instead of warm, because cold water actually stimulates urination more aggressively than warm water does, another thing the old folks understood instinctively. I knew a man who swore this water timing thing did not work, and I watched him try it for maybe 2 weeks before he gave up and went back to his old pattern. I asked him one day why he had quit, and he admitted that he had actually been drinking coffee in the late afternoon, which he did not count as drinking water, and he had been having a glass of water right before bed because the habit was so ingrained he did not even think about it. When I pointed out that the coffee was actively working against everything else he was trying to do, and that the glass right before bed was breaking the whole boundary, his face went quiet and he nodded. He said nobody had ever explained it in those terms before, and he had simply assumed he was doing it right because he was doing something. We talked about the mistakes, not the intention, and 6 months later he mentioned, casual in passing, that he was sleeping through now, most nights, and the whole thing had been those 2 small things he did not even know he was doing wrong. The fifth key is supporting the kidneys and bladder themselves through the evening and night. Not with medicine or supplements, but with simple practices the old folks built into their lives. This means keeping the evening calm and cool, because a stressed or overheated body processes water differently than a relaxed one, and stress alone can trigger the kidneys to work harder. This means avoiding salty foods at supper, because salt makes the body hold on to water and then try to eliminate it aggressively through the night, creating a false urgency that interrupts sleep. This means keeping the bedroom cool at night, because a warm room triggers more urination than a cool one, and this means elevating the head slightly when lying down, so fluid does not pool in the bladder the way it does when lying completely flat. None of these things are complicated, And all of them have been understood for hundreds of years by people who simply paid attention to what their bodies needed and responded accordingly. Esther learned early on that a warm bath in the evening actually made the nighttime bathroom trips worse, not better. So she shifted to a quick wash-up instead. She also learned that a salty supper made the pattern worse, so she stopped reaching for the salt shaker at the evening table. These are tiny changes, nothing that feels significant when you first make them, but they stack on top of the water timing and the evening cutoff until you have a whole system that supports good sleep instead of working against it. She keeps the bedroom window open, even in cold months, because she says the cool air helps more than warmth ever did. I thought she was just being stubborn about the cold bedroom, but I tried it myself and found she was right. The cool room made a real difference to how often the body asked to wake. The sixth key is understanding that this is not just about bladder capacity or kidney function. It is about sleep quality itself. When a person wakes up 2 or 3 or 4 times a night, they never spend enough consecutive time in deep sleep for the body to properly repair itself. The immune system does not have time to do its work. Inflammation does not decrease the way it should. The brain does not clear out the day's cellular debris the way deep sleep allows it to. So a person who wakes up frequently is not just losing hours of sleep, they are losing the quality of the sleep they do get, and the body suffers from that loss in ways that compound over time. Once the nighttime waking stops, once someone actually sleeps through, the improvement in overall health often surprises them because they had no idea how much the interrupted sleep was wearing them down. Better sleep means better immune function, better healing, better mood, better thinking, better everything. And it all starts with water timing that lets the body actually rest uninterrupted. So here is the whole pattern, laid out plain. Front load your water early in the day, drinking most of what you need between morning and 4 in the afternoon. Set a firm cutoff at 4 or 5 o'clock, after which water is restricted to small sips only. Avoid caffeine and alcohol in the afternoon and evening because they actively work against what you are trying to do. Avoid heavy fluids at supper, including soups and stews and even milk-based drinks. Keep the evening calm and cool. Avoid salty foods and keep the bedroom temperature cool with good airflow. Elevate the head slightly when lying down so the body drains properly. None of this costs anything. None of this requires a prescription or a special product. It only requires understanding that the timing of water matters as much as the amount and being willing to shift a habit that has probably existed since childhood. Most folks who try this pattern for 2 or 3 weeks find they have gained back a solid night's sleep, and most folks who maintain it find that improvement lasts year after year without having to think about it much once the new pattern becomes simply how things are done. I want to be clear one more time before you go. If nighttime bathroom trips are frequent and constant, every single night, multiple times, despite trying this water timing, please do not assume it is simply aging and resign yourself to it, thinking this is just the cost of getting older. Speak to a doctor, because that pattern can point to things that deserve attention, things that are manageable once you know they are there. Prostate trouble in men is common, but deserves checking. Blood sugar running high needs to be known about. Heart function changes. When the heart is not pumping as efficiently as it should, and the body is trying to get rid of fluid by running it through the kidneys, these are things worth investigating. Kidney function changes, while less common than the others, are still worth ruling out. None of these things are emergencies, but all of them are things a doctor actually needs to know about so you can address them properly. But if your nighttime waking is occasional, if it is the product of poor timing rather than a deeper problem, then this water timing pattern might just give you back something you thought you had lost to age, which is a full night's sleep without interruption, the kind of sleep that makes the next day's work possible. If this kind of plain, practical wisdom about how the body actually works is something you find useful, stay a while longer here on the channel. We walk through these kinds of practical adjustments often, one simple shift at a time. Until next time, may your sleep be deep. May your nights be undisturbed. May you wake refreshed instead of exhausted. And may your mornings come with the rest that makes the day's work not just possible, but actually enjoyable.